Hello and welcome to episode 104 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for joining me on the program today. If you cannot get enough of what I do, you can find me all over the place. Linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. Huge amount of news to get through today. I've also been playing a huge amount of games. Checked out the Concord beta. I've been trying to keep up with some of the games that have recently dropped on Game Pass. Some new, some old. There's a ton to get to today. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited about what we're going to be talking about today. We got some updates on the state of Game Pass. Again, I'm not even talking about the games that have been coming to Game Pass, but kind of Microsoft's plan to seemingly make Game Pass worse and worse with every decision, but we have some updates around that. Some updates surrounding some unionization in games, as well some delays, some studio acquisitions, even some updates on Apex Legends, of all things. But the thing I really wanted to get to at the start is a closure of the Humble Games publisher. Humble, if you don't know, is what's the best way to describe it? Humble Bundle is basically a digital store for PC games. I think they also sell some codes for other games. They can get some Switch stuff, some PlayStation stuff on Humble as well. But Humble, best known for being the bundle store where you can go in and, every, month or so, they'll have different themes like, oh, this is all about cooking simulators, or this is all about racing games, or first-person shooters, or fighting games, or this is all from one publisher, or this is all from one developer, whatever the case may be. And the idea is that, as part of this, you can also get a huge amount of games for, for a really reasonable price. This, what we got right now is this Calypso management thing where it's like, oh, you get Tropico 6, and then you get a bunch of DLC for Tropico 6. And it's like, oh, you get 26 different things for $20 or something. And when you get into something like Humble Bundle, you can also decide if your money goes to a donation, organization. In this case, this Tropico bundle that I'm looking at, the charity that is kind of part of that deal is Oceana, protecting the world's oceans. And you can do things. You can adjust the donation, and you can say how much goes to the developer, the company, how much goes to Humble, how much goes to the charity, so on and so forth. Now, they also just have a straight up storefront, Humble. So you can just buy codes and games and stuff like that off Humble. They also have a membership called Choice, where basically every month they're going to give you free games. So right now for July, it's sign up for Humble Choice and you're going to get A Plague Tale Requiem, Ghost Runner 2, Starship Troopers, Sticky Business, and a bunch of other games as well. And you keep those games, you own those games. It's basically you get a one-time code to redeem on Steam or whatever platform for those games, so on and so forth. They'll also give you a discount the more you are a member. Sounds like a lot, right? It's here's this organization for buying games on PC. PC is a much more democratized way of buying games compared to something like PlayStation, where you can basically go to a store, assuming your store still sells physical games in some way, shape, or form, or you can buy the games from PlayStation. You're not often buying a lot of codes for PlayStation games, though they do exist as well. PC a lot more democratized, even if you are going to Humble to buy a code that you redeem on Steam or the Epic Game Store or Good Old Games or whatever, to launch and play that game from. So that's what Humble Bundle is, but Humble is a little bit more than that, because Humble also got into the business of publishing video games. They were an indie publisher, so small independent devs would look to Humble for financial, support and marketing support and release support for their games as well. So Humble hands in a lot of pies, and I should mention off the top, Humble also owned by IGN Interactive, IGN Entertainment, excuse me. IGN, the same place you go for gaming news and reviews and live streams, and it's probably where you saw one or two of the Summer Game Fest streams or any of that stuff. So I think it's a little weird that this store, this and publisher would also be owned by a kind of media group like IGN on top of that. That seems like maybe conflict of interest, but what do I know? The reason I'm bringing this up is because the indie publishing arm of Humble Games, has been closed. Humble Games is confirming the restructuring after 36 employees have said to have been laid off. So I'm getting this from Video Games Chronicles. As always, shout out to Video Games Chronicles. They kind of also cover some of the history of Humble Games. Humble Games is the publishing division of California-based Humble Bundle, which was acquired in 2017 by Ziff Davis through its IGN Entertainment subsidiary. It has published over 20 games since 2019, including Forager, Wizard of Legend, and Temtem, according to its parent company. Now, they have gone on to, this was kind of, in a story in development. The dust has settled, and Humble Games has put out a statement saying, quote, "In these challenging economic times for indie publishing, Humble Games has made the difficult but necessary decision to restructure our operations," the company said in a statement. This decision was not made lightly. It involved much deliberation and careful thought, with the goal of ensuring the stability and support of our developers and ongoing projects. Additionally, the restructuring operations at Humble Games will have no impact on operations at Humble Bundle. We are acutely aware of the profound impact this decision has on our team members at Humble Games and deeply empathize with everyone affected. Our team's contributions have been world-class and invaluable, supporting the launch of our game since we started publishing in 2017. We are committed to navigating this transition with such empathy and understanding as possible. With as much empathy and understanding as possible. Supporting our development partners and assisting former team members remains our top priority. We are committed to making this transition as smooth as possible for everyone involved. Thank you for your support and compassion during this challenging period. It is deeply appreciated. Listen, we've done this song and dance before. You and me, we've done this so many times. I'm not even going to criticize the statement or critique, the nature of the cuts and we're so sad, all that. No, I'm not even going to bother. The thing that has me curious is that Humble Games, at least as of right now, is signed on to publish games that aren't out yet. Never Alone 2, Monaco 2, Wizard of Legend 2, and Lost Skies are games that had been signed on to be published by Humble Games. Really makes you wonder if they just, how bad the situation must have been at Humble Games if they couldn't even stick around to at least get those games out the door. Be like, hey, sorry, we're not signing any games at the moment. We're not, looking to get any other partners going. We just want to get these games out the door and then close. My only hope, well, I hope a lot of things, right? But one of my big hopes is that the games that are not finished still get to come out and still get published and still get the support that they deserve during their launch. Because the other thing is that, like, I've seen indie gaming grow to be this incredibly competitive market. Like, it's not just a scenario where the cream rises to the top. It's not even that anymore. For example, during the summer, during the Game Awards, they were trying to market Dave the Diver as an indie game. It is not an indie game whatsoever. That developer is owned by a big company. What we've seen is some big companies try to help publish smaller indie games and then kind of ride the wave of that goodwill or whatever, right? Like EA gets all warm and fuzzy when they publish an indie game, or Take-Two or whoever, right? Ubisoft, same thing. But it's also a scenario where even just as like a straight up independent ass developer with incredibly limited resources, getting a game out the door, even when it's a sequel, like, I mean, listen, Never Alone, Monaco, Wizard of Legend, like those are games that were big enough to warrant sequels, even in an indie landscape. And even they might be at risk of falling apart before they even get out, or not having the launch that they need. It's an incredibly competitive market. We talk about how stiff the competition is in AAA gaming. It is getting incredibly brutal for indie games if we're not already there. So the loss of Humble Games, it makes things worse. It doesn't make things better. We've already talked about some indie developers, some indie companies, some AAA companies like Take-Two Interactive closing their Private Division label, which was also a label that helped publish indie games, get those games out the door. So this is just a disaster for indie developers as far as I'm concerned. You might hope that Team 17 or Devolver or some of these other companies pick up the slack. They announced that the Among Us people had started a fund to help get indie games out the door and stuff like that during Summer Game Fest earlier this summer. But it's almost never enough. It's almost never enough as far as I'm concerned. And my only hope is that, everyone involved at Humble Games lands on their feet, that there's no more cuts to Humble Bundle and all of that stuff in general. I hope that the games that are still, in the process of being made, make it out the door safely and to the success that they deserve. And that this shit has got to stop, because once you start to impact indie games, it becomes, an incredibly boring industry, right? Like you watch stuff like Day of the Devs and you're like, man, these games are just thinking outside the box. These games are just something that I've just never seen before, or this is a niche game that, reminds me of my youth in terms of like, oh, this is a retro rally racing game that looks like a PS1 game. It's like, EA's not going to make that. Sony is not going to make that. Whoever is not going to make that sort of thing. So incredibly disappointing, just a super bummer across the board. Understatement of the year. Even going back to the idea of all of these studios and publishers being laid off. So I just want to wish everyone the best of luck. I hope everyone lands on their feet. But this news with Humble Games, incredibly disappointing to hear. Moving on to another disappointment, but not necessarily bad. It's just one of those things where like you're looking forward to something, you're looking forward to a game, you want to play it, it gets delayed, and the road to launch is a rocky one, regardless of AAA, indie. That being said, I think this game in particular has had one of the most unique development stories that I can think of, that game being Stalker 2. Stalker 2 has now been delayed to November, after originally being delayed to September 5th. And like, here's the thing, GSC Game World, they're trying to make a game while also dealing with the illegal invasion of Russia into Ukraine and all that stuff. I'm going to not even get into any of that stuff at this point anymore. Let's just kind of get our facts straight. And it's interesting because GSC Game World kind of comes out and just like, hey man, shit happens, right? They put out a statement saying, quote, "We know you might be tired of waiting and we truly appreciate your patience. These additional months will give us a chance to fix more unexpected anomalies, or bugs, as some people call them. Stalker 2 is shaping up to be everything we envisioned with the launch nearly here, and we are incredibly excited to share more with you. To give you a taste of what's coming, we're thrilled to announce that Stalker 2, the developer deep dive video, is coming to Xbox, YouTube media channels and all that stuff August 12th. So yeah, just, listen, the game's like, what do you want me to say? What would you even say in this point, right? There's almost nothing to say other than I hope Stalker 2 is good. I'm not saying it has to be good or anything like that. I'm not trying to have such a make or break kind of opinion going into this game, especially having not played it and only seen a little bit of footage of it. But you hope that the delay is all for the better, and that it comes out being the best game that it can be. So best of luck to the team at GSC Game World. Really looking forward to Stalker 2 now coming out in November. I feel like talks about this game has fallen off about as quickly as it did when it first originally came out. I'm talking about Multiverses, which is, if you may have remembered, had a big open beta, and then they took the game offline for almost a year, brought it back, and now Warner Brothers has acquired the Multiverses studio, Player versus Games. They've also announced that season 2 of the platform fighter is launching this week. I'm really curious about the decision. Like, I maybe not so interested in Multiverses anymore, to be honest. I know that, like, they're adding Samurai Jack and Beetlejuice to Multiverses. So the thing I'll say is that, like, I appreciate just how weird Multiverses is getting with its references, with its characters. I can now finally have Jason Voorhees versus Beetlejuice for the battle of my generation, anyways. And I say that as someone who wasn't even alive when those movies originally came out. That being said, excuse me. Why now? Like, is the game, I guess my question is the game being so successful that Warner Brothers wants to own the whole pie? Or is it a scenario where the game could not continue to run unless Warner Brothers injected more money into it by buying it? Are they buying it because it's a winner, or are they buying it to save it? And I know that sounds like such a, horrible, scenario of like, well, is it can't be a mild success. It can't be a moderate failure. It has to be either white hot or not at all. And I know that's like a defeatist way perhaps of looking at it. And maybe there's more to it than that. They do put out a statement, but statement kind of leaves, with you with about the same amount of questions as before. This is from Warner Brothers Games president David Haddad, who says, "We have worked with Player First Games over several years to create and launch Multiverses, and we are very pleased to welcome this talented team to Warner Brothers Games. The bright and creative team at Player First Games adds to our extensive development capabilities. Our team is excited to join Warner Brothers Games family, and we feel that this will be great for Multiverses overall." Let's see here. This is actually from a different, this is like a joint statement between the Player First Games Multiverses director, who then adds, "Our team is excited to join Warner Brothers Games family, and we feel that this will be great for Multiverses overall. We are working to make the Multiverses game experience the best it can be, and having our development team integrated with the publisher is optimum for players." Sure. Like that's what I mean when I say, like, yeah, does this, like, it's just, everyone says this is great for business, right? And I don't even want to say what the alternative is if this business does not turn out to be great. But it really makes you wonder, especially in light of, didn't make this a news story, but NetherRealm, the NetherRealm mobile games division, saw a bunch of cuts and layoffs there as well. NetherRealm, the Mortal Kombat developer, they have their main team working on the console games and all that stuff. They also had a mobile games division working on something called Mortal Kombat Onslaught, like a free-to-play phone game. That game is being shut down. That team is being, kind of laid off as well. So, and that's Warner Brothers as well. So it makes you wonder, like, listen, if I had to guess, Multiverses is probably a hotter game than Mortal Kombat Onslaught and whatever other Mortal Kombat online game that they were working on. But it's always disappointing to be like, oh, you had enough money to, like, buy a new shiny toy, but not enough to, manage the thing you already had. That being said, curious to see, listen, if 6 months from now they're like, oh my god, Multiverses has, like, such a more robust and better single player, the monetization isn't so weird, you can just, like, play it and enjoy it, and there's depth and all that stuff, and it's a solid game, maybe I would check it out. I don't know, but very curious to see what this ends up doing for both Player First Games and Multiverses in general. There was a thought at one point that, like, maybe I shouldn't even bother covering this news story because I don't play the game, right? But I think there is value in talking about just the way greed and the gross level of monetization happens in games. I think there's value in talking about that, even when it's a game I don't necessarily play or stop playing. So if you remember, we talked about that Apex Legends Battle Pass and how you would no longer be able to use in-game currency to buy the Battle Pass, and they were splitting the Battle Pass in half, so you had to buy it twice in order to get the full value. EA has now canceled the unpopular Apex Legends Battle Pass change following outcry, which I'm not trying to give myself any credit. Please understand. I get like a couple hundred views on my videos. I'm not some I ain't shit. And that's fine. That being said, I think the outcry must have been pretty bad if you had people like me who just feel like covering the video game news, seeing that as a big enough news story to cover it. I can only imagine just how furious people who actually care about Apex Legends must have been for this to change. So Electronic Arts has revised its plans. There's also a graphical summary now of how this works, which is always great to see, confusing graphs and charts explaining how this shit works, but let's try to get into it. You've spoken and we've listened, said EA. With the release of Season 22, we will restore the ability to get the Premium Battle Pass for 950 Apex coins. We recognize that we could have handled the Battle Pass changes better. That's on us. You'll be able to earn enough Apex coins via the Battle Pass to get future passes it added. While the Apex Legends Battle Pass currently runs for the whole season and has 110 levels, going forward, each season will offer 2 battle passes, one for each split, with both being 60 levels. With the launch of Season 22, the first Premium Battle Pass will be unlockable by completing a series of simple in-game challenges. Starting with the second split on September 17th, Premium Battle Passes will be available for 950 Apex coins. Moving forward, we recognize that we need to be more timely, transparent, and consistent in our communication with you, EA statement also added. Your priorities are our priorities. Cheaters, game stability, and quality of life updates are top of mind. We need to get better, and that's why we're acknowledging them here. So, oh God. I'm looking at this graph now. And other games have done this. In fact, I just saw this sort of bullshit in Modern Warfare 3 when I fired up Modern Warfare 3 on Game Pass. But here's how it currently works. When you get Apex Legends, you can get the free Battle Pass. You can get the Premium Battle Pass. You can get the Ultimate Battle Pass, or you can get the Ultimate Plus Battle Pass. If you get the free tier, it's going to come with 18 free unlocks as you play through the Battle Pass. Guaranteed 200 Apex coins. Okay? With something called Apex Packs, you're going to get 7 of those. I'm assuming that those are random loot boxes, if I had to guess. If you get the Premium Battle Pass for 950 Apex credits, or Apex coins, whatever they call it, you're going to get 92 rewards. That also includes the free rewards, right? You're going to get a guaranteed 1,300 Apex coins just for playing through that Premium Battle Pass. You will also get something called crafting medals. You're going to get 1,200 crafting medals. You're going to get 14 of the Apex packs, and you're also going to get something called exotic shards, and you're going to get 10 of those. But wait, there's more. They've still found a way for you to give them money, because you can also get, you can also get the Ultimate bundle, which is $10 USD. You cannot use credits or funny money to buy it. When you do that, you get everything from the premium and free tier, Plus, you're going to get an instant unlock of 8 of those Apex packs, as well as 1,200 additional crafting medals. If that's your thing. I think the reason they have it this way is because you can also use some of this currency to buy the characters in the game. It's like one of those things of like, you'll get a smattering of free playable Apex Legends to play as, and you can buy those additional characters if you want. You may rotate out and be like, oh, last month they had this character and now it's this other character or these other couple of characters. And if I want to play the character I was playing last month, I'm going to have to buy it. You know, it's a free to play game. So they at some point you are buying something in that game, whether it's cosmetic or actual content. But what if I told you you can also give them $20 USD? That is going to get you everything already, but you're going to get an additional 20 exotic shards. You're also going to get 2 legendary skin variants. Those are the costumes. You're also going to get an additional instant rewards. I don't know. There's like a symbol on the screen. I don't know what it means. This is how confusing it is. I might as well be reading like fucking ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. And then you'll also, by giving them $20, you'll also get all of the Apex Legends playable. So yeah. Now I should also mention that those rewards are part of the 60 level track, right? So you're still going to have to spend 950 Apex coins times 2 to get both level tracks if that is your thing. But you would at least have enough Apex coins if you completed the battle pass to buy it again for free and then some if you want. I'm sure they'll find other ways to, take those Apex coins from you, whatever the case may be. But to give them credit, they have at least found a way to make it, so that if you buy in and you play a lot of the game, you are rewarded by continuing to have that premium, battle pass tier if you desire. My understanding is that like other games also do this. For example, Suicide Squad does this. I mean, Suicide Squad is probably not going to have a lot of battle passes going forward, if I had to guess, but I know they do it. I think Call of Duty also does it, but the other thing I've seen is that, and this is what I was going to talk about with Modern Warfare 3 is, they will now let you, of course you can still get the battle pass, like the premium battle pass with the in-game earnable currency and all that stuff. But we've also added like 2 additional layers of give us real money, no funny money allowed to get this additional experience. So in Modern Warfare 3, if I give them the funny money, I get Rhea Ripley, who's one of the WWE people added to Call of Duty this season. But if I buy something called the like Black Cell edition of the battle pass, I think I get like other instant unlocks and all this other shit. But the thing that kind of confuses me, and maybe you'd have to look at this comparison chart to get it, but like the thing people were hung up about was the Apex coins not being something that you could use anymore. You now get 1,300 Apex coins if you complete a battle pass that cost you 950 Apex coins. That seems to me like the big currency in this whole thing, right? Why would you go and spend $20 on a battle pass that's going to get you a couple extra things, but none of those extra things are the additional currency that you could then convert back into the lower tier premium currency? It is mind-boggling to me how expensive this stuff is for stuff that really doesn't seem like the meat and potatoes of the content you'd be wanting to unlock in Apex Legends anyways. And I'm picking on Apex Legends, Call of Duty the same way. Other games are going to have more generous battle passes. Typically, the less popular games have more generous battle passes, which is why I say like, hey, Suicide Squad, not the worst deal, because that battle pass seems pretty easygoing. The other thing is that like, if you buy into this battle pass, you only have a certain amount of time to complete it, and then it is gone, right? So if you're going to play this, you got to be playing a lot of Apex Legends to get a value out of that battle pass because it will go away. There are some games that let you buy battle passes and let you return to them even after that season is over. Those two games that I can think of are Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and Halo Infinite, which are two games that are like, hey man, if you buy the battle pass and you want to come back 6 months later and we're on a different season, on a different battle pass, you can still rank up and level that battle pass if you desire. But the other thing is that like, they're probably doing that because they want to bring people back into the game regardless of a fear of missing out of the new content. So at one point, maybe at some point, there's no fear of missing out on the content because they're not making any more new content. I'm not going to say that's going to happen to something like Halo Infinite or Apex Legends, but Halo Infinite or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. But you can see the way they try to monetize your, living in the moment, monetize this like, hey, just make Apex Legends the only game that you play. And Apex Legends is the only game that does this. I'm talking about every other game. Fucking the First Descendant does this, and Fortnite and all of that shit. But like I think even Fortnite will let you do like a monthly subscription. Like they'll just like, hey man, every month you get the battle pass and tokens or whatever, and they do it in a way where it's like, oh, it's a slightly better deal, but you got to sign up for a monthly thing or whatever. But hey, small victory for the Apex Legends players. But I guess it shouldn't come as a surprise that EA is going to do what everybody else is doing and find other ways to charge you additional money for the battle pass. I respect people that are clinging on to physical media for dear life. If you are out there still buying Blu-rays or DVDs or even CDs or vinyl or physical video games, for those about to rock, we salute you. I get it. However, the war is already over. Like the physical media lost. It lost, I would argue, a long time ago, but we're now really starting to see the effects of it being lost. Capcom put out a statement saying 90% of its sales are now digital. 90%. 90%. This isn't like, oh, it's a 50-50 split the way it might have been like, a couple of years ago. Not 10% of you are going out there and going to the fucking Best Buy and buying Resident Evil 4 remastered, remade, whatever, and giving them money and taking it home. And you know what happens when you take home a physical game? You put it in your disc, your disc tray, put it in your system. You install the game to the hard drive, and then you download a day one patch, because if you didn't play with the patch, you would have a significantly different experience. Think about how many games come out and are fucked up, broken, and janky as all hell if you don't install the day one patch. Now, if you have a digital version, of course, you're going to get the most recent version of that game. No update required, right? Unless it's a scenario where, and I know like PlayStation, Xbox sometimes do this, where it's like, oh, if I pre-ordered the game, which first of all, what are you doing pre-ordering digital games? What? What are you doing pre-ordering digital games? Why? It's there on the server. It's not going anywhere. Anyways, if you pre-order a digital game, you can often preload it so you can actually have it downloaded to your system, ready to go, prior to it being available, meaning that you can sometimes just click the button and go when it goes live, midnight, 9 p.m. Pacific time, whatever the game comes out, right? So you don't have to sit there and download it day one. But even then, if you have downloaded the game, there's usually a day one update anyways for it, so you're probably going to be sitting there waiting for that patch to go live, unless they do the smart thing of saying, okay, a week from now, you can download the game and have it ready to go. And then 2 days before it goes live, we're going to put out the patch so that, there's no big update for you. The date comes out, you can literally just play it, whatever the case may be. But if you own the physical game, you're going to do all of that anyways. You're going to sit there and have it installed to your hard drive because the game is running off the hard drive. If you ever wondered why the PS5 has such fast load times, the way the Xbox Series X has the fastest, fast load times, it's because they're running the game off the hard drive. They're not reading the disc. The only reason they read the disc is to authenticate ownership of the game. You basically own nothing when it comes to physical media. Now, you might argue that owning basically nothing when it comes to physical media is better than owning literally nothing when it comes to digital media, but really, we're talking razor thin differences at this point in time. You want to fight the good fight? I'm not going to stop you. In fact, I actively encourage it, but I would just like to remind people that do not act like you own much of anything when it comes to physical media, because you own a lot less than you think you do due to the nature of requiring day one patches, the fact that the game has to install to the hard drive, and I didn't even mention this at the top, the fact that most of these games have online servers connecting them to some sort of online infrastructure, meaning that if the online server, okay, I'll give you an example. You bought Destiny 1 on PlayStation 4, you bought the physical version of that disc. What are you going to do with that disc once the game goes offline? You can't do a damn thing about it. Now, of course, that is, maybe a cynical way of looking at it, because I'm picking on games that are exclusively online games. Yes, of course, if you go buy, Nathan Drake, the Uncharted collection on PS4, 10 years from now, you'll, I'm assuming, be able to play it because it's a single player offline game. But like, single player offline games are like niche at this point. How many games come out, even if they aren't fully online games, have some sort of online component? Like, yes, you'll be able to play EA college football 20 years from now, but you're not going to be able to play it online. Like, how much of that game is going to work? A significant portion of it will not be available because of all the online modes and play and the DLC and all that stuff. And you might just throw your hands in the air and say, well, modern gaming sucks. I'm playing on a PC. I have not put a physical thing into my PC in a long time. I don't even have like I'm slapping my PC like it's a car. This bad boy can fit so many games in it. But like I just think like some people are trying to fight this like rising tide. And I'm not saying embracing it is going to be much better either, but like, I don't need to own, I think maybe I just look at media a little bit differently of like, I think a lot of this stuff is less valuable than people say it is. I know that sounds harsh, but like, if I watch a movie on Netflix and it's like, turns out to be one of my favorite movies of all time, whatever. Do I still need to own it? Like, do I physically or in some way, shape, or form need to go and own this favorite thing of all time? Maybe. I'm also someone who, if I am going to buy something and own it, I would actually, especially with movies, I would much rather buy the digital version. So like, I've been buying movies and stuff, like every now and then I'll buy a movie or something off iTunes because I'm confident in that storefront. I'm confident in the ownership of that stuff. And if something were to happen, I'm sure that there would be some sort of way of protecting my purchases. And if not, well, I don't know, but I'm confident in it. The same way I'm confident in Steam, right? Like I'm confident that when I buy these games on Steam, I will be okay. That shit ain't going anywhere. And how does this relate back to Capcom? Well, because they say that despite 90% of its sales being digital, Capcom claims it won't be, it won't stop producing physical games. They also predict that it's going to go up to 93% this year. I don't know where they're going to get the additional 3%, but yeah, how about that? During the Q&A summary of its 45th Ordinary General Shareholders Meeting, Capcom was asked about its outlook on the production of physical games, especially as the company sees a larger portion of sales being directed towards digital titles. That new Capcom game. What the hell is that new Capcom game? It came to Game Pass, came to a bunch of platforms. What the hell is that game called? Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess, right? Like that's one of the more popular Capcom games that came out as of recently. That's digital only. You cannot go buy a copy of Kunitsugami on a disc, right? So we're even at a point now where like some of those games ain't even coming out physically at all, right? But they do say that given the significant number of end users demand physical games, we do not expect to eliminate physical products. I'm going to read that one more time, and I just want to think about what that means. Given that a significant number of end users demand physical games, we do not expect to eliminate physical products. To me, that sounds like Capcom would rather not risk any loss of sales, even if it means not selling nearly as many of the physical copies as they made. It's almost like this idea of like, it is cheaper for us to save face than it is to anger a vocal minority. And don't get it twisted. The people that are passionate about physical media are a vocal minority, but again, I'm not trying to pick on them. All the respect in the world, but like, what are you doing going and buying a book? What are you gonna do with that book? What are you gonna do? You're gonna give that person that book? Are you really gonna give somebody a book like after you read it and be like, hey, you should read this book? Like, you might, but are you really going to? Anyways, while Capcom releases all of its major titles as both physical and digital releases, the company has released some smaller titles as digital only, such as Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess. During the 2023 financial year, Capcom announced that 90.1% of its sales were for digital titles, forecasting it'll reach over 93 during the current financial year. Now, you might be asking yourself, but GnittWitt, what about physical games? What about physical games? I want to touch and hold and feel and rub my physical game all over my naked oiled chest, greasing up the liner of the paper box art cover. Anyways, so here's where physical releases are going and have been going for a long time. Going forward, I suspect, and all of the data and all of the kind of behaviors of these companies suggest it, that physical media is going to become a collector's item. Here's why. And Video Games Chronicle summed this up really nicely. While some larger titles in recent years have been released as digital only at launch, such as Alan Wake 2, physical versions of the games often follow later. Remedy and Epic Games have partnered with Limited Run, which is a company that produces physical versions of games that were previously digital only. Limited Run to release a deluxe physical edition of the game alongside a collector's edition, for example. Meaning that when you get the deluxe physical edition of Alan Wake 2, which, by the way, is there Wake 2 Deluxe? Is there pricing for Alan Wake 2 out of curiosity? I'm going to pull that up. Oh, Alan Wake 2 Deluxe. Okay. I would like to buy the Alan Wake 2 Deluxe. How do I do that? PS5. Select Deluxe Edition. Oh, see, it's not even available yet. Is it? Can I? I'm going to type in physical edition. So, I mean, even a scenario where it's like, it's even hard to find because I don't think it's out yet. Okay. Alan Wake 2, it's great. So it's coming this fall. Okay. So here's the thing. Even if you get the physical edition, of the game. So this is why I don't think that like this Alan Wake physical edition is going to be like as cheap as it would be if you bought it digitally, because here's what you get. When you get the physical deluxe edition, you're going to get the expansion pass for the game. You're going to get a digital edition of Alan Wake Remastered. You're also going to get the digital deluxe in-game content, such as the character costumes and other stuff. And then the cover of the game will also come with a reversible cover sleeve if that is your thing, right? Which is fine. But like, I think that's probably going to be like full price, if not 10 or 20 bucks more for it. And like, whatever, like you decide if you think that like there should be you're going to have to decide if you think that there is a premium that should be paid on a physical good or not. But I think that's where a lot of the stuff is going, is they're going to be like, well, if you want it, you're going to wait a year until we get, and this is probably the best thing about it is like, to be honest, Alan Wake 2 the physical deluxe edition will probably have all of the updates and patches. It'll probably be the best, most stable version of that game on disc. Here's what I suspect. Versus something like, I don't know, Jedi Survivor, where even if you bought the disc, that game had like 6 or 7 patches over the year or so that they were updating the game. So if you bought the physical version of the game, you still had to update it. I suspect that they will at least have all the updates and patches included for Alan Wake 2, the physical edition. But I still suspect that, like, with the additional content and the packaging that they're doing, you're probably going to be paying a premium on it anyway. So you'll have to decide, is it worth it or not? Capcom seems to think that it is worth it to continue to produce those physical games. The other thing is that, like, when you buy like the collector's edition, that stuff is exorbitant, like in price. Like, that stuff is crazy expensive. You're paying like almost twice the price for a full game. And a lot of it is just like little trinkets and bullshit and shit that you don't even need. But hey, if that's your thing, I say more power to you. Keep buying physical games. It's probably saving me in some way, because if everyone was doing digital, I'm sure that, like, you know, consumer protections and refund policies and all that stuff would be a lot worse than it currently is. So again, for those that are about to buy physical games, you know, I say, let's get physical. We're going to take a quick break, and we come back. We're going to talk some Xbox news. Xbox is beefing with the FTC and some more unionization news. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. It is time to talk Xbox, and it's also time to talk about the FTC. If you remember, the FTC was not mincing words and was actively trying to discredit Xbox and Microsoft and Activision and really try to stop that merger, that $69 billion merger from happening. It went through, and now FTC is kind of making some rounds. That's the Federal Trades Commission, if you're not familiar with some of the organizations that the states has. They're kind of going out there saying, see, we told you. See, we told you. Hey, listen, don't say we didn't warn you. And specifically when talking about the Xbox Game Pass price hike, that is consumer harm. So the agency is continuing to submit evidence that while its appeal is being considered, and in a new filing on Thursday, highlighted Microsoft's new Game Pass tiers, which included a price increase for Ultimate and a new standard tier that doesn't include day one releases. FTC out there saying, product degradation, removing the most valuable games from Microsoft's new service, combined with price increases for existing users, is exactly the sort of consumer harm from the merger the FTC has alleged. Microsoft's price increase and product degradation, combined with Microsoft's reduced investment in output and product quality via employee layoffs, are the hallmarks of a firm exercising market power post-merger. Whew. Man, FTC just out there just shooting on him. Oh my God. God, stop, he's dead already. But the FTC goes on to say, Microsoft's price increase coincide with the adding of Call of Duty to Game Pass's most expensive tier, and discontinuing the console tier will happen shortly before releasing Call of Duty's newest game. It notes that Microsoft promised that the acquisition would benefit consumers by making Call of Duty available on Microsoft's Game Pass on the day it is released on console, with no price increase for the service based on the acquisition. I don't know if they ever said Call of Duty is going to come to Game Pass without a price increase, but it's nice that FTC is trying to, put words in Microsoft's mouth. I'm okay with that. The agency concludes by claiming that Microsoft's post-merger actions vindicate its earlier skepticism of promises it made regarding Game Pass. Previously, the FTC alleged that Microsoft's decision to make mass layoffs earlier this year contradicted previous statements it made in court about how it planned to run the Xbox business if it acquired Activision Blizzard. That's wow. You know what? Here's the thing. You might, and I'm really trying to avoid politics this week. I really am. But you can be for or against big politics and, overextending politics or whatever. But I'm just glad that the government in the States at least is trying to, have Microsoft face the music about where things have gone since the acquisition of Activision. Right? That being said, I don't think FTC actually has all of its facts straight, or at least gave Microsoft enough wiggle room that they could pull this off and get away with it, which they almost certainly will, right? We've been over this acquisition before, like dozens and dozens of times. When they said, hey, it's coming to Game Pass, they didn't say it's coming to the current tiers of Game Pass. They didn't say it's not going to be more expensive to play it or whatever the case may be. They said it's coming to Game Pass, right? And in fairness, it is still coming to Game Pass. But I would argue that, with these, trade commissions and all of that stuff, you often have the scenario where, they just don't cover enough grounds for these companies to not wiggle out of it in some way, shape, or form, right? Which is why Microsoft has clapped back. Dude, do people still say clap back? Well, I said it anyways. Microsoft has returned fire on the FTC, says it's wrong to call Game Pass degraded. That's what they say. That's what she said. Anyways, it claimed the price increases were, quote, exactly the sort of consumer harm it tried to stop by fighting the company's acquisition. This is what the FTC said, right? Let's just see here. Okay, so this is how Microsoft. Okay, I got the quote here. This is how Microsoft is trying to justify it. So, really, if you ask me, what is my opinion on this? My opinion stems more from what Microsoft says and what FTC says. Let me explain. This is Microsoft's statement. Quote, earlier this month, Microsoft announced changes to its gaming subscription service Game Pass to provide customers valuable options at different price points. Microsoft is offering a new service tier, Game Pass Standard, which offers access to hundreds of back catalog games and multiplayer functionality for $15 a month. It is wrong to call this a degraded version of the discontinued Game Pass for console offering. That discontinued product did not offer multiplayer functionality, which had to be purchased separately for an additional $10 a month, making the total cost $20.98 a month. While Game Pass Ultimate's price will increase to $20 a month, that service will offer more value through many games available day and date. Among them is the upcoming release of Call of Duty, which has never before been available on a subscription day and date. Stop the presses. Stop everything. Stop. There's no way you can make the argument that going from $17 a month to $20 a month for Game Pass Ultimate just purely by adding Call of Duty is a good deal. See, this is the thing that FTC just totally wasn't paying attention to. Is now you have Xbox out there trying to champion the idea that $20 a month for exactly the same thing that you already had as part of Game Pass Ultimate, now including Call of Duty, is some steal of a deal. They could have kept the price the same and nothing else of the service would have changed, and they still would have had to put Call of Duty on something, but they're trying to argue that, oh, Call of Duty, man, that is worth the extra money and will continue to be worth the extra money as we go along. For the people who don't care about Call of Duty but want Game Pass Ultimate, can they continue to pay $17 a month and just not have Call of Duty? I don't think that's going to work that way. The other thing I would say is that, multiplayer functionality ain't no deal. And I get it. I'm on PC where I do not pay to play any multiplayer game unless it's a game that already has some sort of existing subscription service, right? So, excuse me if I look at Sony and Microsoft charging money to play online multiplayer and think that shit is not the deal you think it is. It is a terrible offering. A terrible offering. Multiplayer online is not worth $10 a month. It is absolutely not worth $10 a month. It really isn't. So this is why I think FTC has it wrong, because Microsoft is not degrading its service, it is instead trying to make it seem like it's a better deal than it is by including stuff that it shouldn't even charge for, in my humble opinion, in the first place. But because they're able to spin it like this is what leads me to believe that they'll just get away with it. Like, think about how stupid the naming is for Game Pass for a moment. I know I've talked about this before. When you look at Game Pass, if I told you, oh, Game Pass has this and this, and it's all this stuff, we play Call of Duty. Well, what's the standard tier? The standard tier doesn't include any of the cool stuff that Game Pass is known for. Well, that's ridiculous. But Microsoft goes on to claim that the FTC is trying to shift focus to the subscription market now that Microsoft has alleviated regulatory fears it would make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox, and claimed that it is, quote, common for business to change service offerings over time, which is exactly something that Microsoft would say. Quote, the FTC barely mentioned subscription at trial, instead focusing on the theory that Microsoft would withhold Call of Duty from Sony consoles. The district court correctly rejected that theory, which is now further eroded by Microsoft and Sony's 10-year agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, a contract that Sony was, quote, thrilled to enter. While the FTC has now tried to shift focus to its alleged subscription market, its letter does not map out its argument below. Setting aside that it is common for businesses to charge service offerings over time, the FTC case in all of its alleged markets have always been premised on vertical foreclosure, that Microsoft would withhold Call of Duty from rivals and therefore harm competition. But even in the alleged subscription market, Call of Duty is not being withheld from anyone who wants it, and there remains no evidence anywhere to harm competition. Sony's subscription service continues to thrive even as they put few new games into their subscription day and date, unlike Microsoft. The transaction thus continues to benefit competition and consumers, exactly what the district court correctly found. This is why I was so mad last week, because all they're doing is making it more expensive and making it slightly worse. They're not like degrading it. They're not like, and when I say like ruining Game Pass, I'm just talking about the perception of the deal, perception of the value, that the perceived value of something like Game Pass, right? That's why the FTC doesn't have it right, because FTC is not out there thinking about what it means to have Netflix and Game Pass and, you know, HBO or Crave or whatever you have, or Amazon Prime. Like, they're not thinking about how these services keep getting worse and worse and more expensive, even as they add more content to it. Like, are you going to sit here and tell me that Amazon Prime is worth more than it was 2 years ago, all because I get to watch the Fallout TV show? Absolutely not. My voice is cracking. I get so mad. Like, absolutely not. Like, I think Fallout is a great show. Is it worth me having to pay an additional $2 a month or whatever for Amazon Prime the way I would have 2 or 3 years ago? Absolutely not. And that's why, like, to me, Call of Duty is not some like steal of a deal for it, because, you know, over those few months, like, maybe there's nothing else coming out on, you know, Game Pass that I really want. Or maybe I got Game Pass Ultimate to play the single player portion of Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and then never touch the multiplayer. Huh? Like, come on. So Microsoft will get away with this, and they'll laugh all the way to the bank, and the FTC will continue to spin their wheels, not realizing how they should have approached this all along. But wait, there's more. Xbox is reportedly exploring more Game Pass tiers. So if you have a Samsung TV, or you have one of those Amazon Fire Sticks or anything like that, you know that the Game Pass, like, you know, cloud streaming stuff is available on those platforms, right? If you want to stream, you know, if you want to stream the games from your TV, not natively running off your device, you can do so. But you need Game Pass Ultimate, the most expensive tier. I'm sure they'll give you a free trial if you've never done it before, but you will need Game Pass Ultimate in order to get the cloud subscription. Microsoft is exploring the idea that maybe you could get a cloud only option of Game Pass. So you cannot get the games on PC unless you stream them. You cannot get, Call of Duty natively running on your Xbox. But instead, the idea that like, oh, you're someone who has an Xbox controller and a Samsung TV, great. You can just, play the game and it's not going to cost you $20 a month. Maybe it'll cost you 10 a month or whatever the case may be, but you're streaming the game. You're not actually physically downloading them. They're also exploring possibly a family membership. A family membership's not a bad idea. But reportedly, it's looking like it's going to be about $25 a month for that family tier, which is a little steep if you ask me. But it would allow 5 people to access a single subscription. I don't know if, we think about like Netflix password sharing and all of that stuff. I don't know if it's a scenario where like I don't even know if this would include Ultimate or not. I'd like to think for $25 a month, you would get Ultimate as part of this, but who the fuck knows? Point is, I don't know if it's a scenario where like I could get 5 homies or 4 homies and myself to all get in, and then like I buy it and then they just pay me. Like, I don't know if that's how the family thing would work or not. I don't know if we could all play the games at the same time, but that's what they're thinking. And they did actually test this across 8 countries between 2022 and 2023. The other thing that Microsoft is considering is an ad-supported tier for Game Pass. I don't know how that would work. I don't know what the hell. Like, oh, I'd have to, every time I die, I have to watch an ad for McDonald's and then I can play Call of Duty again. I don't know. But that's the kind of the thing they're working on, is potentially a cloud-only tier for those that are looking to to stream their games on something like a Samsung TV, Amazon, Fire Stick, whatever. Family Pass and an ad-supported tier, which would then mean that there's even more tiers to Game Pass, making things more confusing. But what are you going to do? A couple unionization efforts across the industry. Bethesda workers vote to become the first Microsoft game studio to fully unionize. 241 developers at the Fallout developer voted. The union was formed after 241 developers, including artists, engineers, programmers, and designers, either signed a union authorization card or indicated they wanted a union representation via an online portal. Microsoft has recognized the union. Quote, "We, a majority of developers at Bethesda Game Studios Dallas, Rockville, and Austin, are ecstatic to announce the formation of our union under the CWA union, the Bethesda union that they wrote on Twitter." What is the CWA union? Let me just check that out. CWA. It's just called CWA union. Okay, great. CWA union. Okay. Together as hashtag one BGS USA, we advocate for the betterment of every developer at Bethesda Game Studio, setting the new standard for our industry. Quote, "As a democratic organization, we seek to empower the collective wishes of our studios workers, having a safe, sustainable, and equitable work environment for all. Having a proper seat at the discussion table allows us to turn those wishes into reality. Joining in solidarity with our fellow members at ZeniMax workers at one," it's all like, these are all like Twitter stuff. "We push to increase job security, compensation, transparency, and flexibility to continue creating the games we love. As we work towards our first contract with Microsoft, we hope you'll join us in voicing your support as we serve as an example for all into the next era of game development." Workers at Bethesda Game Studios in Montreal filed for union recognition in the Quebec Labor Relations Board in late June to be represented by CWA Canada. So it looks like perhaps a rolling out of additional unionization across Bethesda Game Studios in not just the United States, but Canada as well. And I'm all for it. I know I'm really bad at keeping politics out of the podcast, and I want to almost say sorry, but like, I don't know. Those people want to be better protected from their employer. I say more power to them. But wait, there's more. The World of Warcraft development team has also voted to unionize. That is now 2 Microsoft studios back to back voting to unionize. It is the first wall-to-wall union at Activision Blizzard and the largest at largest at a Microsoft studio. Over 500 members of the team have joined the Communications Workers of America. I'm guessing that's CWA. And Microsoft subsidiary Blizzard Entertainment has recognized their union. The World of Warcraft Game Makers Guild becomes the first wall-to-wall union at Activision Blizzard and the largest at a Microsoft-owned studio. Quote, "What we've accomplished at World of Warcraft is just the beginning," said Eric Lanham, test analyst and member of the World of Warcraft Game Makers Guild. It's a little wordy, but whatever. I respect it. I think being part of a guild would be fun. Quote, "My colleagues and I are embarking on a quest to secure better pay, benefits, and job security through a strong union contract. We know that when workers have a protected voice, it's a win-win for employee standards, the studio, and World of Warcraft fans looking for the best gaming experience. Through our union, we're ready to tank any obstacles, heal any wounds, and DPS through the challenges ahead." DPS means damage per section. They're throwing a bunch of nerdy World of Warcraft terms into this, which I respect, even if I roll my eyes just a tiny bit. "Together, we will ensure a full tier set bonus with the inclusion of all job titles in the same union." A spokesperson for Microsoft told Variety, quote, "We continue to support our employees' rights to choose how they are represented in the workplace, and we will encourage in good faith negotiations with CWA as we work towards collective bargaining agreement." So that's a lot of people unionizing up at Microsoft. I wish them all the best of luck, happy negotiations and all of that stuff, and I'm excited to see what happens as they enter their contract agreements. Got a couple real quick news stories, and then we'll move on to games that I've been playing. This is a meaty, beefy, thick podcast, and I appreciate you sticking it out with me today. Stardew Valley creator says that they will never charge money for DLC or updates. The Stardew Valley creator, Eric Concerned Ape Baron, has said he'll never charge money for a DLC or update as long as I live. Earlier today, the developer posted on social media to say console and mobile ports of the Stardew Valley 1.6 update are, quote, still in progress. Excuse me, losing my voice a little bit. The Stardew Valley 1.6 updates are, quote, still in progress following the PC release back in March. Quote, "The ports and next PC update are still in progress. I know it's taking a long time. It's on my mind every minute. I have personally been working on the mobile port every day. I will announce when there is a meaningful news. Hope you're having a good summer." A fan followed up this post to say people won't complain about the wait as long as everything you add is completely free. And this is their direct quote. They said this on July 22nd, saying, "I swear on the honor of my family name, I will never charge money for a DLC or update as long as I live. Screen cap this and shame me if I ever violate this oath." He then adds, "By the way, I'm not criticizing devs who do charge for DLC. Everyone's circumstances are different. This is just my own approach and not to be taken as critique of anyone else." Now, in fairness, Stardew Valley has sold a lot of copies. Stardew Valley is an incredibly popular game. Sold a huge amount of copies. In fact, I'm curious, Stardew Valley has sold about 30 million copies since 2024. It is one of the best-selling games of all time. So, I'm not not saying anything, but when you have like a small developer like Concerned Ape being like one dude, there might be more people. I haven't actually looked at the credits for Stardew Valley. But when your developer is mostly a dude, and then you go on to sell one of the biggest games of all time, 30 million copies. Let me put it in context. How about this? Here are games that has sold more copies hero games that Stardew Valley has outsold. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Telltale's The Walking Dead, Call of Duty Black Ops, Cyberpunk 2077, and Elden Ring have all sold less copies than Stardew Valley. So I say, you know what? If you want to just use all that goodwill to give away free updates for the game and for whatever other games you're working on, more power to you. Support Concerned Ape, because they seem to be doing some damn good work over there with Stardew Valley. And I think they announced their next game, Haunted Chocolatier, but I don't know when that's coming out. Speaking of free, Concord has announced that it will not have a battle pass, and it has already started to tease the free content coming after release. So take all I said about the battle pass and Apex Legends, all this shit, throw it out the window, because Concord ain't going to have any of that stuff. In an info dump designed to answer some of players' most common questions during the game's recently concluded beta, its developer has discussed progression, maps, modes, and plans for post-launch support. The studio said, Concord does not have a battle pass. We wanted to focus our attention on making Concord a rewarding and robust experience on day one, where just playing the game, leveling up your accounts and characters, and completing jobs yields meaningful rewards. It has also said the progression rewards available in the beta were just a small section of the unlockable items that will be included in the $40 version of the game when it releases on PS5 and PC on August 23rd. They continue to say, when Concord launches, we'll have hundreds of items to customize your free gunners, which you can earn just by playing the game, completing jobs, and leveling up your account and characters. Those rewards are cosmetic. They do not impact gameplay Those include things like free gunner outfits, wearables, and accessories, as well as customized paint jobs for your guns, charms that you can hang from your guns, victory and defeat poses, and drop-in animations. Concord will have 12 distinct maps at release, including the 5 included in the beta, plus all 6 modes featured during the testing, and a launch roster of 16 playable characters with unlockable variants. Firewalk goes on to say, launch is just the beginning. We will be introducing new free gunners, maps, modes, and more through regular post-launch seasons and updates available to all players at no additional content. We'll be diving deeper into our post-launch roadmap very soon. Stay tuned. The 5 vs 5 hero shooter won't have solo-specific modes at launch, but our lineup will grow over time through regular content updates. There will also be single-player training modes at launch. Firewalk has said it's exploring different ways of incentivizing players not to leave the matches mid-game, including lever penalty systems. So this allows me to transition into my time playing Concord. I did not think I was going to play Concord, but the open beta was up and ready to go. And I thought to myself, yeah, okay, I'll check out Concord. And remember, this is a game, like, this is a 5 vs 5 multiplayer shooter with hero abilities and all of that stuff. And that's typically not the type of first person shooter I'm playing, because I don't play a lot of Apex Legends, which has that same system. I don't play a lot of Overwatch, which has that same system. The only thing I can think of that I really has that sort of system is Destiny, but Destiny is a very, very different game. And I didn't play the competitive multiplayer in Destiny much anyways. So what is Concord? Concord is a 5 vs 5 multiplayer shooter with different game modes and objectives, where you play as different characters with different abilities, classes, weapons, strengths, weaknesses, all that jazz. And I probably put less than an hour into Concord if I'm really being honest. I probably played a handful of matches during my time with Concord, and going into it, I was, well, how would I put it? Going into Concord, my whole thing was, I don't have much hope for Concord. I don't think this is going to be some hot selling game. I don't think this is going to be some amazing thing that just, becomes the hot shooter that Sony probably wants it to be. Like, I just went into Concord thinking, this is probably not going to be my sort of thing. And here's what I'll say about Concord. I think the action, I think the shooting and all of that stuff is actually pretty decent. I actually think that, like, from a gameplay perspective, Concord mostly has it right. It's not perfect by any means, but I think when I picked a character who's very much just like a run and gun soldier type class. They're like, they don't have any crazy abilities. They really play like a character you would play in something like Call of Duty. But as I'm like running around shooting, I'm like, oh, you know what? This game actually looks all right. This game's got like decent looking maps and you know, that sort of design. It's got some decent, you know, sort of character, you know, looks. And I just thought Concord's actually better than I thought it was going to be. When they talk about like customizing your character and all that stuff, I didn't get too far into the beta to really see, you know, how much I can really customize my guy. I did unlock different versions of some of the characters. So basically it'll be the same character, but with some slight differences to their abilities and stuff like that as well. I didn't really compare between the two characters that I had, but I was unlocking. One thing I thought was weird about the progression system in Concord is I was unlocking character customization and variants for characters I wasn't even playing. So like a character that I never even played as, I all of a sudden was like getting variations for it. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, but it would have been nice to see like what the character I've been playing as would get and all that stuff. So I don't know if they're going to fix the progression system in terms of rewarding you for playing characters you actually want to play as. But it's also a thing where, like, in terms of team composition, like only one person per team can play as one of those characters. So if your favorite character is picked, you're going to have to play as somebody else, which I found a little frustrating that time, but at least allowed me to experiment with a couple of the different characters. But I kind of went back to the meat and potatoes shooter soldier type character in Concord. So like playing the beta, the thing I thought of was actually Concord's good enough, like to be one of these games. Like it totally checks off those boxes. Unfortunately, I still feel like Concord is good enough, but good enough is not good enough in this marketplace where, say what you will about Overwatch 2, a game that is very similar to Concord, but Overwatch 2 is a free-to-play game. Destiny 2 is a maybe not a lot of people are playing competitive Destiny 2, but Destiny 2 is a free-to-play game. X-Defiant is a free-to-play game, competitive shooter with character abilities and all of that stuff as well. Concord is a game that's going to cost you $40 at launch on PC or PS5. So I just don't think it has the hooks in it. I don't think it has that je ne sais quoi. I don't think it has that stank on it to really stand out in such a crowded market. So I'm glad that they're trying to approach it as a game for, you know, people to play more casually, not having to worry about grinding out a battle pass, not having to worry about being nickel and dime to death in cosmetics and all that stuff. I'm sure they will put some stuff in it. I just don't see why they wouldn't. It's the nature of the beast. But at the end of the day, like, Concord is just that. It's okay. And while I was pleasantly surprised and then kind of enjoyed my time playing the beta, at no point was I like, you son of a bitch, I'm in. Like, at no point am I trying to feed my credit card to my PC being like, oh, I need to play more of this. I need to play more of this. I was like, yeah, this is okay. And if it was free to play, maybe I'd play more of it. But I'm not, like, it's not that. So it's almost like damning praise to give to Concord of like, hey, what you've made is really good, but I don't want to play it, which is like a really messed up thing to say about a game, but that's how I feel. With that said, I'm now that I've actually like played it, I'm actually more curious to see what the reception to Concord's going to be, what the sales are going to be for Concord. Cause now I'm like, and it's horrible to think like this, but like when you get into multiplayer online gaming, you want to back the right horse, right? Like imagine if you and your friends were like, all right, guys, we heard that Suicide Squad is going to have, I know you hate to pick on Suicide Squad, but all right, guys, we heard that Suicide Squad is going to have a battle pass system. It's going to have all this and that in it. All four of us are going to buy the game and get into it. And that's going to be our game every Friday nights. We're going to fire up it up. You be King Shark, I be Harley Quinn, whatever. Let's do our thing. And then you're like, oh, this game is not going to get the content updates we were looking for. Or, oh, this game maybe isn't as popular as we thought it was going to be, or, oh, they closed the servers 2 years after the game, like, whatever, right? Maybe they have already figured all of that out and they think that Concord is only going to be a game that sticks around for about 2 years. I don't know how long the game will survive. I don't know. Some games last longer, some games last shorter, but maybe they're not thinking that this is going to be a game that you forever play like a Fortnite or a Destiny or whatever, Warframe. So I'm really curious to see how Concord turns out, but I thought it was good, but it ain't great. Dungeons of Hinterberg. Dungeons of Hinterberg is a action RPG that came out on Game Pass last week. I had a chance to play it, and what Dungeons of Hinterberg is, it's a very stylized, kind of cartoony-ish look to it, and it is a game where you play as a character, and it's basically the premise is that tourism in the Alpine village of Hinterberg is a fantasy where people can explore the dungeons, hence the name Dungeons of Hinterberg, and fight monsters. So the idea is that people vacation to Hinterberg to fight magical beasts and monsters and become monster slaying type characters, monster slaying type people. You play as a lady who's kind of escaping the corporate life as a law trainee, trying to get away from the office and explore the dungeons of Hinterberg. So you can run around the village of Hinterberg. You can buy weapons and armor. You can talk to people. You can actually form like friendships and relationships, sort of like a Persona or like a Marvel's Midnight Suns type thing of like, oh, do you want to spend a day hanging out with this person? But when you're not doing that, you are running through the dungeons. They have a set amount of dungeons, these kind of pre-made dungeons. And what they are is they're basically levels that you run through that feature enemies, they feature a little bit of puzzles, and they feature a boss fight at the end. And basically your thing in Dungeons of Hinterberg is you're going to spend day by day going through these dungeons, completing the puzzles, beating the bosses, getting a check mark on your thing saying I've completed the dungeon. And then you'll earn currency and stuff like that to get a better weapons and armor and all of that stuff. And I think the gameplay loop is okay. Like, I like the idea of them trying to turn dungeon crawling, monster fighting into some sort of like destination tourism. Like, I think that's like an interesting idea. And I think that has a lot to say about the way tourists treat the environments that they vacation to and stuff like that. Like, it's an interesting idea. I think it's an interesting idea. Unfortunately, I just don't think the gameplay is that hot. I think it's really floaty, and I think the combat is kind of lifeless and flat. It is also it's all text based, so there's no voice dialogue in the game. And I just didn't think that like the writing was like I think it has some interesting ideas. Like, I think the idea of like, hey, what if tourism was about you living out your monster slaying fantasy? I think that's a fascinating idea. And I think they have probably a lot of cool things, or I hope they have a lot of cool things to say about the tourism industry in general. I think that's a fascinating idea. But I think there's just something a little flat about Dungeons of Hinterberg that left me being like, I don't know if I want to go through all these dungeons. I don't think the puzzles are that interesting. I don't know if the combat is that fun. I don't think the upgrade loop of my character is that fascinating or not. I might come back to it. I might see where that story goes. I don't know, but I was actually left maybe a little wanting after my time playing Dungeons of Hinterberg. Moving on, I have kind of made the decision that I don't think I want to keep playing Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I don't know if I actually really want to see, even out of morbid curiosity, where that story goes. We were talking about, oh, Mrs. Freeze is coming to Suicide Squad. I don't think I need to play as any of the other characters in that game. I don't think I need to unlock the Joker. I don't think I need to unlock Mrs. Freeze. I just don't think that it's doing much of anything for me. I do have it installed on my PC, so I can always go back to it as well. But I was kind of going back and forth between Marvel's Avengers and Suicide Squad. And the thing I kept thinking was like, oh, the gameplay of Marvel's Avengers is something where like the menu system and the way it wants to encourage multiplayer, even though again, you can totally play it by yourself. Again, cannot stress enough. Marvel's Avengers, you can totally play by yourself, completely offline, no harm, no foul. But the way you have to like kind of dig into some of the menus to get to playing it by yourself is a little frustrating in Marvel's Avengers of like, oh, I selected my character and now it's like, do you want to play with other people? No. Okay, great. We're going to add these other characters too. They're just computer characters. And it's like, this is not a story mission. This is like a repeatable mission that you could keep playing. It's like, oh, but I was looking for a story mission. How do I tell what's a story mission? All that stuff. Like, it's a little frustrating because like the core of that Marvel's Avengers story is really good. The cutscenes are fantastic. The voice acting is great. I think the combat is okay, but I think the frustrating thing about the Marvel's Avengers combat is it does still assume that you want to grind out, side quest after side quest to get better armor, to get better upgrades, when really I'm kind of there for the story. So it almost seems like there's a little bit of padding in Marvel's Avengers in a way that like I just wasn't necessarily down to want to play. But again, I have that game still installed. I'll keep picking at it maybe. Suicide Squad, same issues with Suicide Squad, where it's like, oh, this story mission that we're doing is actually is just disguised as one of the side quests that I've already done in Suicide Squad multiple times, where it's stuff like, oh, we got to rescue the secret agents that have been trapped by Brainiac. So we have a bus in the middle of this like street, and you're going to run back and forth from the bus, dropping off rescued, agents and shooting enemies at the same time. And then after that, we'll like give you a small cutscene saying good job or whatever. Like, Marvel's Avengers and Suicide Squad games that, even with, the focused story missions and cutscenes, still have a little bit of that padding, still have a little bit of that, kind of repetitive nature to them that encourages you to play it over and over again, even if you don't necessarily want to. So mileage may vary with your patience for those types of games. That being said, I found the Marvel's Avengers story to at least be incredibly rewarding and engaging, even if there is a lot of fluff still propping it up, even after all these updates. That being said, I'll say that they've added a ton of story content. Like when you go to the Marvel's Avengers like main menu, it's like, hey, do you want to play the Kate Bishop story? Do you want to play the Hawkeye story? Do you want to play the Black Panther, like Wakanda story? Or do you want to play the main story? Or do you just want to run random missions as any of the characters in the game? Like there's a ton of content in Marvel's Avengers. Now that they finished updating it, it's just a thing of like, well, what's the most important story stuff and what isn't? And sometimes figuring that stuff out takes a little bit of getting used to. Modern Warfare 3 came out on, a Game Pass, and I decided to fire it up. And when I fired it up, I was just playing the multiplayer. I did not play any of the story stuff, because the other thing is, like, I've played the reboot of Modern Warfare 1, but I did not play the reboot of Modern Warfare 2, so I don't know if I necessarily want to get into the story of Modern Warfare 3 and try to figure out what the hell's going on in part 3 of a trilogy that I've only played 1/3 of up until now. So instead, I fired up the multiplayer. And I can tell you a couple things about the multiplayer. One, I can now confirm that Rhea Ripley, Rey Mysterio, and Cody Rhodes are the playable WWE characters in Modern Warfare 3, though I couldn't actually find Rey Mysterio and Cody Rhodes. Like, I couldn't find a way to buy them or unlock them or play as them. Like, I couldn't figure out where they were. But in an announcement that the Call of Duty made about the upcoming season, they confirmed those are the 3 characters. With Rhea Ripley, you have to buy the premium battle pass in order to unlock Rhea Ripley. So I think it's like, I don't know, $10 or something. Like, you can buy it with Call of Duty. I really am sick and tired of talking about battle passes, but whatever. If you want Rhea Ripley, you have to buy the battle pass. The nice thing is that when you buy that battle pass, you instantly get Rhea Ripley. So even if you never play Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 again, if you buy the battle pass, you will unlock Rhea Ripley, Mommy, as the game calls her. I think they refer to her as both Mommy and Rhea Ripley. You can also get different costumes for Rhea Ripley, like different ring gear. It's basically Rhea Ripley in ring gear. So it's like, Google Rhea Ripley and you'll know exactly who Rhea Ripley, what mommy look. Make sure to type in like current day Rhea Ripley because she's certainly changed her look since her time in NXT and the Mae Young Classic and all of that stuff. That being said, Rhea Ripley you can get as part of the Battle Pass if that is your thing. There was a part of me that was like, you know, I didn't buy Cheech and Chong when they came to Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. I didn't buy Lara Croft. I didn't buy Snoop Dogg. I didn't buy Bruce Willis. I didn't buy Rambo. I'm not running around as some like fluffy pink fuzzy monster like the way I've seen some of the people in Call of Duty running around as. So there was this part of me that's like, maybe I should buy Rhea Ripley. And then I realized that like, I don't know how much Modern Warfare 3 I'm going to play. And I've kind of already committed to having spent some money in Fortnite where I can play as John Cena and Spider-Man and Alan Wake and a couple other like characters that I bought. So I don't know if I necessarily want to spend the money to play as Rhea Ripley, especially considering Modern Warfare 3 Call of Duty is a first-person game. You are spending money on costumes and characters that you will never see for 99% of your time playing the game. Now, when you buy Rhea Ripley or any of the other characters, you also get voice dialogue. So when you shoot somebody, Rhea Ripley will say whatever Rhea Ripley says, come to mommy or whatever she says. So you do get like this feeling of like, oh, I am playing as Rhea Ripley. Like you see her arms and her nails and she's holding a gun and all that stuff. And I still think the idea of Rhea Ripley running around shooting people is a hilarious idea. Like, don't get me wrong. I see the value in it, but it's a first person game. Say what you will about Fortnite, but when I see John Cena, I see all of John Cena in, in Fortnite. So the other thing I'll say is when I was playing Modern Warfare 3, the people that are still playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 are absolute monsters at that game. I got my ass kicked up and down every single, or pretty much every single game that we played. I don't think I was on a winning team my entire time playing Modern Warfare 3 last night when I fired it up. But you know what? Like I still enjoyed messing around with it. I was like, oh, this game actually looks pretty good. And the shooting, like I'll say, like the shooting and gameplay, and gun firing in Call of Duty is pretty great in Modern Warfare 3. It's a lot of fun to play. Unfortunately, you're having a lot of fun, but then you are running up against people who are whooping your ass. So, you know, maybe I'd get better and, you know, maybe Modern Warfare 3 actually needs to be the game that I am playing constantly all the time now, so that by the time Call of Duty Black Ops 6 comes out, I have re-seasoned myself. I have reconfigured myself to being a Call of Duty, a badass Call of Duty player. I will say, in my time playing Call of Duty, I have never once considered myself good at Call of Duty, or I have been like average at best playing Call of Duty. But maybe if I play a bunch of Modern Warfare 3, I'll get better at Call of Duty so that by the time Black Ops 6 comes out, I am a lot more competent at the game. We shall see. I also been getting into some emulation. I've kind of been updating my emulation, systems on PC here. Big update to PCSX2, which is the most popular PlayStation emulator. Huge amount of updates. Go check out PCSX2 and their updates if you want to. But basically a big update that kind of got me back into it. Got a bunch of games on my PC now ready to go for PS2 and PS1, though I've been mostly focusing on updating the PS2 stuff. And it got me thinking a couple of things. One, I have without a doubt spent, and this will probably be the case forever, but I have without a doubt spent more time messing with the settings and updating the games and adding cover art to the games and the main menus and all that stuff. I have definitely spent more time setting this stuff up than I have spent playing any of these games. The other thing I realized is, of the games I have, I will probably get around to playing about 1% of them. And of the 1% of games that I play, I will probably finish about maybe 1% of that 1%. Like, the thing I realize is, like, when you get into old games, I just turned 30, so don't mind me going down the I just turned 30 last week, this week. Gosh, time flies. I just turned 30 earlier this week. So don't mind me if I'm an old man with his old games, going down memory lane to some extent. But, you know, I realize that once you get into these emulation games, that you will play them for about 15 minutes and be like, huh, NBA Street Volume 2. That's a great game. That's a lot of fun. You'll move on to something else, or you'll never come back to that game because you already got your fill. I don't know if that's going to be the same thing for me, but that's kind of what I suspect to some extent with some of these games. But I got family coming over later this week. They want to check out some PS2 games. They want to see how the emulation stuff works. I'm very excited to show them that stuff. Go down memory lane with them. Super cool, super awesome. But the thing I keep thinking is like, you know, how many of these games am I really gonna play the PS2 version of 007 Quantum of Solace when I've already played through that game on PS3? Maybe not. But I have it. If I need to, I got it. Oh yeah, it's there, ready to go. Whenever. And then the game that I've probably spent the most time playing is Mass Effect. So my quest to play through one of the Dragon Age games led me to BioWare's other RPG series, Mass Effect, where I've put about 5 hours into Mass Effect since starting my playthrough. And Mass Effect's a great game. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I don't think I'm going to be sitting here telling you every week that Mass Effect is an awesome game, though I feel like sometimes I should, and that I do. But with all of that said, I'm about 5 hours into Mass Effect. I just got to the point in the game where it kind of like, it opens up, like it's like, hey, here's the galaxy, go do your thing now. Here's your main story, here's your quests, side quests, all that stuff. Go with Space God. I don't think there's any Space God in the game now that I think about it, but you know what I mean. And it's a great game. I think Mass Effect is fantastic. I'm playing the Legendary Edition. That's the remastered version of that trilogy. And the more I play it, the more I think, yeah, I will probably finish Mass Effect 1 just on my spare time. Does that mean I'm going to immediately jump into Mass Effect 2? My answer, the answer I want to say is yes, because Mass Effect 2 is like a 200% better game than Mass Effect 1. I think Mass Effect 1 is pretty good, but Mass Effect 2, that's where the money is. And then I'd be able to carry over all my choices and decisions and romance options and who did I save, who did I let die, who did I kill, whatever, into Mass Effect 2 and see how that stuff plays out. I'm not too sure, but just wanted to let you know. Your boy's been playing a lot of Mass Effect. I think going forward, because I kind of bounced off some of those newer games like Dungeons of Hinterberg, Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn came out. I already played the demo for that during Steam Next Fest. That game didn't do anything for me. So I shall see how this stuff goes. But I think going forward, it might be a lot of Mass Effect and Modern Warfare 3, but we shall see. That has been a lengthy, beefy, thick podcast for this week. And I think it's about time that we wrap this up and say thank you so much for stopping by and saying hi, kicking it with me today on the show. I have been GnittWitt. I will continue to be GnittWitt. Though when the cameras are off, I'm somebody entirely different. No, you can find everything that I do over at my Linktree. That's linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all of that good stuff. I hope you enjoy whatever games that you've been playing. You know, I hope you're not swimming in debt courtesy of the subscription services that you've applied to. But I hope it all works out for you. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for hanging out. Take it easy. Enjoy your gaming. Happy gaming. Live Moss, as the Taco Bell people might say. Goodbye.